Hi everyone, my name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old. For 8 years I was the backbone of Harrison Technologies. Not officially. Not in any title that appeared on business cards or conference room nameplates. But every major client knew my direct line. Every critical deadline lived in my calendar. Every crisis, technical, financial, operational, ended up on my desk with a post-it note reading "Rachel will fix this." And I did. Every single time. I started at Harrison Technologies the summer after graduate school. 23 years old, MBA fresh in hand, ready to prove myself in my family's software consulting firm. My father, David Harrison, founded the company 32 years ago. Built it from a garage startup to a $230 million operation with offices in 4 cities. You'll start in project management, he told me that first day, standing in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. Learn the business from the ground up. That's how leaders are made. I believed him. I worked 80-hour weeks. I learned software development, client relations, contract negotiation, vendor management. By year 2 I was managing projects worth $8 million annually. By year 4, senior developers asked for me specifically because I understood both the technical requirements and the business implications. The clients loved me. Trusted me. When Meridian Industries, our largest client at $50 million annually, had a catastrophic system failure 3 years ago, they called my cell at 2 a.m. Not the CEO. Not the CTO. Me. I assembled a team. Worked 72 hours straight. We rebuilt their entire infrastructure, implemented redundancies, delivered them operational 3 days ahead of the emergency timeline. Their COO sent a handwritten letter. "Rachel Harrison saved our company. We are forever grateful." At the company celebration dinner, my father toasted the Harrison Technologies team for their collective excellence. My name wasn't mentioned. My cousin, Brandon, 29 and recently returned from his 3rd startup failure, stood beside my father and smiled like he'd contributed something beyond showing up. Brandon was my uncle's son. Charming, photogenic, good at golf and client dinners. He'd spent his 20s launching tech startups that burned through investor money before collapsing. No exits. No successes. Just expensive lessons in what not to do funded by family money. When his last venture imploded, my uncle called my father. "Brandon needs stability. Bring him into Harrison. Let him learn from the best." The best apparently meant me. My father called me into his office on a Monday morning. "Brandon's joining the senior team. I want you to mentor him. Show him how we operate. He's family and family takes care of family." I nodded. Family takes care of family. I'd heard that phrase my entire life. The mentoring began simply enough. I walked Brandon through our project lifecycle, client management systems, technical architecture. He took notes on an iPad, asked decent questions, seemed genuinely interested in learning. Then the pattern emerged with brutal clarity. Brandon would sit in client meetings nodding and smiling while I presented the strategies, timelines, risk assessments. Afterward, my father would clap Brandon's shoulder. "Great presence in there, son. Clients respond to that confidence." I'd pack up the projector, the handouts, the technical specifications. Drive back to the office. Implement everything we'd discussed while Brandon played foosball in the break room. When the Apex Digital account nearly walked because of a pricing dispute, I spent 2 weeks renegotiating terms. Created a custom package that saved them $2.3 million over 3 years while maintaining our profit margins. The client was ecstatic. Signed a 5-year extension worth $15 million. At the quarterly board meeting, my father stood and announced, "I'm pleased to report that Brandon successfully retained the Apex account through innovative negotiation. This is the kind of strategic thinking that will drive Harrison Technologies forward." Brandon looked uncomfortable. I looked at my laptop screen where the 47-page proposal I'd written was still open. Mrs. Patterson, our CFO for 18 years, found me in the parking garage that evening. I was sitting in my car, not crying, just staring at the steering wheel. "He knows," she said through my open window. "David knows you saved Apex. The whole executive team knows." "Then why does Brandon get credit?" "Because acknowledging your work means acknowledging he's grooming the wrong person for succession." She squeezed my shoulder through the window. "You're not invisible, Rachel. You're essential. That's different. And eventually, essential people get tired of being treated as expendable." The invisible labor continued for 8 years. I mentored Brandon. Showed him how to read technical documentation, manage difficult clients, negotiate contracts, handle vendor relationships. He learned slowly how to look competent in presentations. He never learned how to do the actual strategic work. When clients called with emergencies, they called me. When proposals needed final review at midnight, I did it. When the board requested financial projections, I built the models, then watched Brandon present them to applause. My father created a new role for Brandon in year 5. Executive Vice President of Strategic Growth. Corner office with a view. $250,000 salary. Company car. Business cards printed on heavy cardstock that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I was still senior project director at $145,000 in an interior office next to the server room where the ventilation system hummed constantly. "You're doing critical work," my father said when I asked about my own advancement. "Client-facing work. The operational foundation of this company." "I've been here 8 years," I said carefully. "I manage accounts worth $87 million. I've never lost a client. I've brought in $34 million in new business. I've mentored every senior hire for the past 4 years, including Brandon. And we appreciate that enormously. But Rachel, leadership isn't just about technical excellence. It's about vision, market positioning. Brandon has that natural executive presence clients respect." Brandon, who'd asked me last week what API stood for. Brandon, who'd missed a critical client presentation because he was hungover from a networking event. Brandon, who still forwarded me emails asking, "How should I respond to this?" But Brandon played golf with my father every Saturday. Brandon made my uncle laugh at family dinners. Brandon was the son my father never had. I was just the daughter who made it all work behind the curtain. The breaking point came on a Thursday in March. My father called an all-hands meeting for 4 p.m. Unusual timing. Most announcements came Monday mornings. I assumed it was about the Meridian contract renewal I'd been negotiating. We just finalized terms. $65 million over 4 years, up from their current $50 million. The largest single contract in company history. The main floor filled with employees. 143 people from senior architects to junior developers. My father stood at the center with Brandon beside him, wearing a navy suit I recognized from the shopping trip where I'd helped him pick professional attire. "Thank you all for gathering," my father began. "Today marks a pivotal moment for Harrison Technologies." He talked about legacy, innovation, the need for bold leadership to guide us into the next decade of growth. I watched colleagues taking notes, nodding, assuming this was another corporate vision speech. "Which is why," my father continued, his voice swelling with pride, "I'm thrilled to announce that Brandon Harrison will be stepping into the role of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately." The room erupted in applause. Professional. Expected. Scripted. I sat frozen in my chair. CEO. Not CEO. Not president. CEO, the role that controlled everything. Strategy. Operations. Client relationships. The future of the company. The role I'd been doing unofficially for 3 years. Brandon brings fresh perspective and natural leadership instincts to this position, my father said, beaming. "I'll be transitioning to executive chairman, providing guidance while Brandon leads us forward." Brandon stood, shook hands, accepted congratulations. His eyes found mine across the room. Something flickered there, guilt, maybe, or apology, before the smile returned. After the meeting, I walked back to my office. Sat down at my desk. Stared at the email I'd been drafting to Meridian's CEO about our new contract terms. $65 million. I'd negotiated every term. Built the technical specifications. Designed the implementation timeline. And Brandon, who couldn't explain our core service offerings without a script, would now take credit for it all. My father appeared in my doorway 30 minutes later. "I need you to transition your major accounts to Brandon over the next month," he said. Not asked. Stated. "Meridian especially. You've built strong relationships there. I want you to ensure Brandon has everything he needs to maintain those connections." "My relationships," I repeated softly. "The company's relationships, Rachel. You understand? This is about continuity. Brandon will need your institutional knowledge to succeed." Something inside me, something that had been bending for 8 years, snapped clean. And what's my new role? I asked. You'll continue as Senior Project Director. Your work is invaluable. Just because Brandon is CEO doesn't diminish your. After 8 years. After managing $87 million in accounts. After bringing in $34 million in new business. After negotiating the largest contract in company history. After mentoring Brandon himself for 3 years. After all that, I remain Senior Project Director in an office next to the server room, and Brandon, who asks me how to spell infrastructure, is CEO. My father's expression hardened. This isn't about keeping score. Brandon has qualities you lack. Executive presence. Strategic vision. Gravitas. You're an excellent operator, Rachel, but you're not leadership material. You never have been. He walked away. Not leadership material. I stared at my computer screen. Let those words settle into something sharp and clarifying. Mrs. Patterson appeared an hour later with tea. Set it on my desk without speaking. When she turned to leave, she paused. My former colleague runs talent acquisition at Novak Solutions, she said quietly. They've been trying to poach Harrison's senior people for 2 years. I could make an introduction if you wanted. I looked up at her. She smiled sadly, knowingly. Just something to think about, she said. That night, I sat in my apartment with my laptop and the files I'd been keeping for years. Not intentionally, just professionally. Documentation was my nature. Every client account I managed. Every contract I negotiated. Every crisis I resolved. Every late night, every weekend, every holiday I worked while Brandon posted Instagram stories from ski trips and beach resorts. The numbers were staggering. In 8 years, I'd brought in $34 million in new business. I'd maintained a 98% client retention rate. I'd managed implementations for 23 major projects with 0 failures. I'd trained 16 employees who'd been promoted past me. I'd built Harrison Technologies' reputation for excellence, and my reward was watching someone else wear the crown I'd crafted. The email from Novak Solutions arrived the next morning. Subject: Confidential opportunity, Chief Strategy Officer position. I almost deleted it. Loyalty. Family. My father's voice about commitment and gratitude and taking care of each other. I opened it instead. Dear Ms. Harrison. Your reputation in the tech consulting space is exceptional. Novak Solutions is expanding our enterprise division and believes your expertise would be transformative. We'd like to discuss a Chief Strategy Officer position with full autonomy, equity participation and compensation reflecting your actual market value. Would you be available for a confidential conversation? Best regards, Catherine Novak, founder and CEO Novak Solutions. I stared at the screen. Read it 4 times. Then I replied, available tomorrow evening 7 p.m. Catherine Novak's office was minimalist elegance. Clean lines, natural light, art that suggested actual curation rather than corporate purchasing. She was 46, sharp-eyed, direct. She offered espresso from a machine that probably cost more than my car. I've been watching your career for 3 years, Catherine said without preamble. Every major win at Harrison has your signature on it. The Meridian save. The Apex renegotiation. The Stellar Systems implementation that came in under budget and ahead of schedule. You're the strategic brain of that operation. My father would disagree. Your father is protecting his investment in his nephew's career advancement. Catherine's tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. I'm not interested in his feelings. I'm interested in results. And you consistently deliver results that exceed projections. She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. The offer was breathtaking. Chief Strategy Officer. $520,000 base salary. Performance bonuses up to $200,000 annually. Equity worth $1.2 million when fully vested. Full autonomy over strategic initiatives. My own team. An office with windows. Real windows. Why me? I asked. Because you don't need a seat at someone else's table, Catherine said. You build the tables. You've just been forced to pretend someone else built them. I'm offering you a place where your name goes on your work. I thought about my father's words. Not leadership material. I'll need to give notice, I said. Take whatever time you need. I want you rested and ready, not burned out and bitter. Catherine smiled. Although I won't pretend I'm not looking forward to Harrison scrambling when they realize what they've lost. I signed the offer letter that night. Gave notice the next morning. My father's face went through several colors I'd never seen on human skin. You're leaving? No. Right when Brandon is transitioning into his new role. That's exactly why I'm leaving. He should learn to run the company he's been made CEO of. This is betrayal. After everything this family has given you, after everything I've built for you. You built this company on my work, Dad. You just gave credit to Brandon. Novak Solutions is giving me a title that matches my contributions and compensation that reflects my actual value. This was the easiest decision I've ever made. You'll regret this, my father said, voice shaking. You can't just abandon your family. I'm not abandoning family. I'm leaving a company that treats me like support staff while giving executive titles to someone who still asks me to explain basic concepts. Brandon appeared in the doorway. Rachel, wait. Maybe we can restructure. Make you president or chief operating officer or, I repeated. 8 years of doing your work, Brandon. 8 years of mentoring you while you took credit. 8 years of watching you get promoted past me for work I did. And now that I'm leaving, suddenly there's room to restructure. I didn't ask for this, Brandon said quietly. No. But you took it anyway. You stood in boardrooms and accepted applause for strategies I created. You could have said something. You never did. I picked up the box with my desk belongings, not much after 8 years. A plant Mrs. Patterson had given me. Photos from client events where I was always in the background. The handwritten note from Meridian thanking me for saving their company. Mrs. Patterson met me in the lobby. Pressed an envelope into my hands. Open it later, she said. And Rachel, you're going to be extraordinary. Come back and tell me about it. I left without looking back at the building. Just walked to my car, put the box in the trunk, drove away from 8 years of invisible labor. The envelope contained a $1,000 check and a note. Asterisk, not charity. An investment in someone who always should have been CEO. Make them regret it. Asterisk. At Novak Solutions everything was different. I had an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. A team of 8 strategists who reported directly to me. Projects with my name in bold at the top of every proposal. Lead strategist, Rachel Harrison, Chief Strategy Officer. The first time Catherine asked my opinion in a leadership meeting, I waited for someone to interrupt. To explain what I really meant. To simplify my technical language for the room. No one did. Catherine just nodded and said, solid analysis. Let's build on that framework. My direct report, Sarah, scheduled weekly one-on-ones not to micromanage but to ask genuine questions. What resources do you need? How can I support your initiatives? What obstacles should I clear? When I delivered my first major strategy presentation, a market expansion plan for our enterprise division, the board applauded. Catherine sent a company-wide email. Asterisk, this is what strategic excellence looks like. Rachel Harrison just mapped our next 3 years of growth. This is leadership. Asterisk. I cried in the parking garage afterward. Not from sadness. From the startling, disorienting relief of being seen. Of being valued. Of having my work acknowledged with my name attached to it. My therapist, Dr. Singh, helped me process the transition. You're grieving, she said during our second session. Not the job. The relationship with your father that you wanted but never had. He's called 23 times, I said. I haven't answered. That's boundary setting. How does it feel? Terrifying. But also peaceful. Both can coexist. Dr. Singh handed me a worksheet on boundary scripts. Remember, no is a complete sentence. You don't owe explanations for protecting your well-being. The evidence folder helped. I'd kept everything, emails, project documentation, client testimonials, my personal spreadsheet tracking 8 years of contributions. Every time doubt crept in. Asterisk, maybe I'm being selfish, maybe I should have stayed, maybe he was right about me not being leadership material. Asterisk. I opened that folder. The data said, asterisk, you were always a leader. He just refused to see it. Asterisk. 2 months into my role at Novak, the earthquake hit Harrison Technologies. It started with Meridian Industries. Their CEO James Whitfield called me directly. My personal cell. The number I'd given him 3 years ago during the infrastructure crisis, with instructions to call anytime, day or night. Rachel, I need to talk to you about something sensitive. Of course, James. What's happening? We finalized the contract renewal with Harrison last month. $65 million over 4 years. You negotiated every term, designed the implementation plan. Now we're dealing with Brandon and... He paused. Rachel, he doesn't understand our technical requirements. He can't answer basic questions about the architecture you designed. We've tried to work with him, but after 3 meetings where he promised to get back to us on fundamental details, we're concerned. I'm sorry you're experiencing that, I said carefully. I'm calling because Meridian wants to move our account to Novak Solutions. You're there. We don't want Harrison Technologies. We want you. You've always been our real partner. We're just following the expertise. I thought about loyalty, family, the right thing to do. Then I thought about 8 years of invisible labor and my father calling me not leadership material. Let me connect you with Catherine Novak, our CEO. We'd be honored to work with Meridian. The meeting happened 48 hours later. Catherine, James Whitfield, Meridian's CTO, their CFO, and me. We spent 3 hours reviewing their needs. I presented the implementation framework I'd already designed, the one Brandon couldn't explain to them. This is exactly what we need, James said. The expertise, the attention to detail, the strategic thinking. This is what we thought we were getting from Harrison. He looked at me directly. Rachel, you saved our company 3 years ago. You've guided every major technology decision since then. We want to continue that partnership. But we want it official. We want it with you where you're actually valued. Meridian signed with Novak the following week. $65 million over 4 years. The largest contract in Novak Solutions history. Catherine promoted me to Executive Vice President of Strategic Accounts on the spot. Added another $100,000 to my base salary. Gave me equity worth an additional $800,000. You just transformed this company, Catherine said. This contract validates everything we're building. You're not just an employee, Rachel. You're a cornerstone. My phone exploded with messages that evening. Brandon first. Rachel, we need to talk urgently. Meridian just canceled. Dad is. Please call me. Then board members from Harrison. We should schedule a meeting. Discuss possibilities for collaboration. Then my father. You poached our biggest client. This is industrial sabotage. This is theft. Oh. I blocked the number. Dr. Singh had prepared me for this moment. They'll escalate when they realize they can't control you anymore. Expect commands, then guilt, then threats, then desperate bargaining. Don't engage unless you choose to. I didn't choose to. Catherine, however, was thrilled. One of the top 5 consulting firms in the region just lost their anchor client to us. Rachel, you're not just good at this work. You're transformational. The second defection came 3 weeks later. Apex Digital, the account I'd saved with custom pricing. Their VP of technology called me directly. Rachel, I'm going to be blunt. Since you left, Harrison's service quality has collapsed. Brandon doesn't understand our technical stack. He missed 2 quarterly reviews. When we raised concerns about our roadmap, he assured us the team would handle it, but no one contacted us. We don't want teams. We want the person who actually understands our business. We want you. Apex brought their $15 million contract to Novak. The third defection made industry headlines. Stellar Systems moves $22 million account to Novak Solutions, following strategic excellence. The article quoted Stellar CEO. We partnered with Harrison Technologies because of Rachel Harrison's strategic vision. When she moved to Novak Solutions, the choice was obvious. Expertise matters more than company legacy. My phone became unusable. Messages flooded in. Brandon, no longer professional. Rachel, please. You're destroying us. Dad's having panic attacks. We've lost $102 million in contracts. We need help. Board members increasingly desperate. We should discuss terms for your return. Name your price. My uncle, you're tearing this family apart. Brandon looks 10 years older. Your father can't sleep. How can you be so cold? I blocked the numbers one by one. Mrs. Patterson texted. *7 senior people quit this week. Including me. Brandon is in over his head and David won't admit it. The whole company is chaos. But you're thriving. Proud of you, Rachel. Catherine called a company meeting. Announced that Novak Solutions had grown 43% in 3 months. That we were opening a new office. That our client retention was 100%. That Rachel Harrison's leadership had transformed the company's trajectory. This, Catherine said, gesturing to me, is what happens when you recognize and reward actual talent instead of trying to fit square pegs into round holes because of nepotism. The entire company applauded. For me. For my work. For leadership that was finally, officially acknowledged. Month 4 brought the desperate phase. My father and Brandon showed up at Novak's offices. Security called up. Catherine came to my office first. 2 men claiming to be family. Want me to have them removed. I considered it. How easy to simply refuse. To let them wait in the lobby experiencing what I'd experienced for 8 years. Being invisible, dismissed, not worth time. But Dr. Singh's voice. Asterisk closure isn't something they give you. Something you create for yourself. Asterisk. I'll meet them in the cafe downstairs, I said. Public space. 30 minutes maximum. We sat at a corner table. Glass walls. Other professionals working around us. Witnesses. My father looked diminished somehow. Older. Thinner. Brandon looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes. Thank you for seeing us, my father began. I waited. We may have underestimated your contributions to the company, he said carefully. Legal language. Precise. We'd like to discuss you returning as President and Chief Operating Officer. Substantial compensation increase. Real authority. Brandon would remain CO, but you'd handle all strategic operations. What's substantial? I asked. $350,000 base. Plus performance bonuses. Plus equity. I almost laughed. $350,000. Novak pays me $620,000 base. I have equity worth $2 million. I have a team that respects me. I have a CEO who values my input. I have clients who followed me because they trust my expertise. Why would I take a massive pay cut to return to a company where I'd still report to someone who doesn't understand basic technical concepts? I was wrong, my father said quietly. About the leadership material comment. I see now that you were leading all along. Brandon needed the opportunity. He needed to prove himself. And I didn't need opportunities. I didn't need anyone to believe in me. Silence. You built a company that couldn't function without the person you refused to acknowledge, I said evenly. That's not my failure, Dad. That's yours. Brandon spoke for the first time. I told Dad you should have been CEO. I said it after the announcement. But he insisted I was ready and I wanted to believe him. I wanted to prove I could do it. I know, I said. And I did. Brandon wasn't malicious. Just weak. Just willing to accept what he hadn't earned because it was easier than confrontation. But you took the position anyway. You stood in meetings and accepted praise for work I did. You could have insisted I be promoted alongside you. You didn't. We're losing everything, my father said, voice cracking. We've lost $102 million in contracts. 30% of our staff. Investors are pulling funding. If we don't turn this around in 45 days, we're filing bankruptcy. Then hire a qualified strategist. There are excellent ones in the market. Rachel, please. My father's composure broke. I'm asking you to save the company. I'm asking you to come back. To help us survive. I looked at him. This man who'd built a company but refused to see the daughter who'd sustained it. Who'd handed my cousin an executive title for work I'd done. Who'd called me not leadership material while I operated at an executive level for years. You had 8 years to ask for my help while valuing it, I said softly. You used those years to tell me I wasn't enough. That Brandon was better. That executive presence mattered more than actual results. I believed you until I found a company that judged me on merit. And then I built something without you. Something where my work has my name on it. Where my success is acknowledged. Where I'm not invisible. So you're just going to let everything we built collapse? My father asked bitterly. We built? I looked at him steadily. The data shows I brought in $34 million over 8 years. I maintained 98% client retention. I managed 23 major implementations. I mentored your staff. I resolved every crisis. I negotiated every major contract. I held that company together while you gave Brandon credit for my achievements. I stood picking up my bag. What you built was a company dependent on labor you refused to credit. What I built is a career where my contributions are recognized and rewarded. We're both living with our choices. I walked away. Didn't look back. Through the glass wall I saw them sitting there. Father and son. Looking lost. The article appeared 5 weeks later. From shadow to spotlight. How one executive rebuilt her career after family betrayal. The regional business journal had contacted me about featuring rising leaders in tech consulting. I'd hesitated, but Catherine encouraged it. Your story matters, she said. There are countless people working in family businesses, being told they're not enough while doing executive-level work. They need to know they can leave. That they're not trapped. The interview was thorough and fair. The journalist did excellent research, including talking to former Harrison employees and clients. I spent 8 years being told I wasn't leadership material while operating as the company's chief strategist, Harrison explains. The clients knew it. The staff knew it. The only people who didn't acknowledge it were the ones benefiting from my invisibility. The article detailed my role at Novak, the clients who'd followed me, my upcoming keynote at the National Technology Leadership Conference. It went viral in business circles. My inbox flooded with messages from people in similar situations. Daughters in family businesses. Sons overlooked for younger siblings. Employees watching less qualified relatives get promoted. Thank you for speaking up. I'm in the exact situation. Your story gave me courage. 15 years doing my brother's work. This helped me see I'm not crazy. I left my family's company last month after reading this. Already have 3 offers. Brandon sent one text. The article was hard to read. Affair. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. My father sent one final email. You've humiliated this family publicly. Made us look incompetent. Don't expect forgiveness. I replied. I don't expect it. I don't need it. Then I blocked the address permanently. The bankruptcy filing was announced 6 weeks before the National Technology Leadership Conference. Harrison Technologies files Chapter 11. Regional tech firm crumbles after talent exodus. The article was detailed. Client losses totaling $102 million. Staff departures, 43 employees in 4 months. Failed investor negotiations. The building lease terminated. David Harrison stepping down. Brandon Harrison, position eliminated. I felt a distant sadness. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just melancholy for what could have been if my father had made different choices 8 years ago. Mrs. Patterson called. How are you processing the news? I'm okay. Really? Is that strange? No, honey. It means you've healed. You've built something new. The old chapter is just closed now. He was right. I built something new. At Novak, I just closed a $47 million contract with an international manufacturing firm. Catherine was creating a new role, Chief Innovation Officer. My team had grown to 15 people, all of whom I mentored the way I wished I'd been mentored, with recognition, opportunities, and credit for their work. Tom, one of my senior strategists, brought his family to the office when I promoted him to director. His mother hugged him, tears streaming. We always knew you were brilliant, she said. We're so proud. I excused myself, went to the restroom, cried for 5 minutes, returned smiling. Dr. Singh helped me understand it. You're not grieving what you lost. You're grieving what you never had, a father who could see your worth. Will it always hurt? It'll hurt less. And eventually you'll realize the freedom is worth more than the fantasy. The National Technology Leadership Conference was held in a convention center with 3,000 attendees. I was the opening keynote. Topic: Leading from wherever you are, recognizing and claiming your value. Catherine adjusted my lapel mic backstage. Nervous. Terrified. Good. It means you care. She smiled. Go show them what not leadership material actually looks like. I walked on stage to applause. Scanned the massive audience. In the back, partially hidden behind a column, were my father and Brandon. Both in business casual. No suits, a departure from the executive uniforms they'd always worn. My father looked haggard. Brandon looked like he'd aged 5 years. I could have had security remove them. I could have ignored them completely. Instead, I began my speech. 8 years ago, I worked for a company that told me I wasn't leadership material. I believed them until I realized that judgment came from people who couldn't run their own company without the person they refused to promote. I talked about invisible labor, documentation, knowing your worth in measurable terms, recognizing when you're building someone else's empire while your own potential withers in the shadows. I was told I lacked executive presence, I said, looking directly at my father. By someone who gave my cousin a CEO position based on family connection rather than competence. And when I left, taking my expertise and my client relationships, the company collapsed. Not because I sabotaged anything, but because the foundation was one person pretending to lead while another person did the actual work. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Here's what I learned. Your value isn't determined by who refuses to see it. Your potential isn't limited by who underestimates you. And loyalty to people who exploit you isn't virtue, it's self-betrayal. I talked about Catherine saying you build the tables. About Sarah asking what I needed instead of telling me what to do. About clients who followed me because they valued expertise over company logos. If you're in a situation where your contributions are invisible, document everything. Build your evidence folder. Track your wins. And when you're ready, don't threaten, don't negotiate, just walk. Find a place where your name goes on your work. Where your voice carries weight. Where you're not just the engine keeping someone else's career running. The standing ovation lasted 90 seconds. People crowded around afterward, sharing their stories, asking questions, thanking me for giving them language for their experiences. My father and Brandon approached as the crowd thinned. Security noticed, moved forward. I waved them off. That's speech, my father said quietly. You were talking about me. I was talking about systems that prioritize connection over competence. You were an example. I never realized how much of the company's success came from you. You didn't want to realize it, Dad. Acknowledgement would have meant admitting you'd promoted the wrong person. That family loyalty blinded you to merit. Brandon looked at his hands. For what it's worth, Rachel, everything you said was true. I wasn't ready. I'm in leadership training now. Starting over. Learning to actually do the work instead of taking credit for it. Good, I said sincerely. You'll be better for it. My father met my eyes. Something that might have been pride, might have been regret, flickered there. You've built something remarkable. I see that now. I know you do. Now that it's too late to matter. Is there any possibility? He stopped. Started again. Could we rebuild our relationship? I can't change the past, but maybe. Dad, I forgive you. The words surprised me, but they felt true. I forgive you for not seeing my worth. For choosing Brandon because he was easier to love. For calling me inadequate while relying on my competence. I forgive all of it. Hope flickered in his expression. But forgiveness isn't reconciliation, I continued gently. It isn't access. It isn't relationship restoration. You can be forgiven and still not be part of my life. Those are separate decisions. I'm your father. You are. And I hope you build something new. Something where you value people's contributions regardless of their last name. But I've built my own table now. There's no seat here for people who spent years telling me I didn't deserve one. I turned to leave. Paused. Thank you though. For giving Brandon the CEO position. If you'd promoted me, I'd never have left. I'd never have discovered what I could build without you. So genuinely, thank you for showing me I didn't need your validation to lead. I walked away. This time I looked back once. They stood there, father and son, watching me disappear into a crowd of professionals who respected my expertise, valued my leadership, and knew my name. 8 months later, I launched my own consulting firm, Harrison Strategic Consulting. Not to compete with my father. Not for revenge. But because Catherine had said something profound. Asterisk, you've always built the tables. Now build your own company. Asterisk. I did. Built a firm that valued documentation, credited contributions, promoted based on results. I hired Mrs. Patterson as CFO. Tom came over from Novak as VP of Operations. Sarah joined as Senior Strategist. We were small, 12 people, but profitable, ethical, growing rapidly. Meridian Industries became our anchor client. Apex Digital joined. Stellar Systems. 3 new Fortune 500 companies that had never worked with Harrison Technologies. First-year revenue, $28 million. My father sent a card. Asterisk, congratulations on your firm. I'm proud of you, asterisk. I read it. Filed it away. Didn't respond. Brandon sent flowers. Asterisk, you were right about everything. Starting from the bottom is humbling. Good luck with your company. Asterisk. I sent a brief thank you email. Professional. Distant. Catherine called to congratulate me. You did it. Built something with your name on it. Literally. I did. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the 8 years at Harrison Technologies. The invisible labor. The interior office next to the server room. The speech where my father called me inadequate. No regrets, I said. Everything led here. On Sunday morning I went to the office alone. Walked through the empty space. 12 offices, conference rooms, a kitchen where we actually talked to each other like humans, not corporate personas. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the harbor. My name on the door. Rachel Harrison, founder and CEO. The title my father said I'd never be qualified for. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then looked at the message. Asterisk, this is David. Saw the article about your firm's success. $28 million first year. You were always capable of this. I'm sorry I couldn't see it. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. Waited for the familiar ache of wanting his approval, his pride, his acknowledgement. It didn't come. Instead I felt complete. Whole. Successfully independent. I typed. Asterisk, I appreciate that. I hope you're well. Asterisk. Then I blocked the number. Not from anger. From boundaries. From understanding that some doors close not because of hatred, but because keeping them open means staying tethered to versions of ourselves that no longer exist. I sat at my desk. Opened my laptop. Reviewed the proposal for our next major client. A $52 million contract that would make us one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the region. Outside my window, the harbor glittered in morning light. Boats moved purposefully across the water. The city hummed with life and possibility. The building at Harrison Technologies had gone dark. The logo removed. The lease terminated. But here in 12 offices filled with people who respected each other, every light blazed bright. I built this table. I built all of it. And my name was on everything.